Hello. How are you? How are you guys? I hope everyone's doing well. My name is Sherry. I am the owner of SMA Credit Excellence. Um, and I just wanted to get on today. I'm just out, just kind of finished working my 9 to 5, and just had a kind of few things to take care of regarding my business. But I didn't want to get on and talk about my business today, not necessarily. I wanted to really get on and just kind of share my fibroid journey. Um, you know, um, and I know it's not really talked about much, but a lot of people deal with fibroids. A lot of women, a lot of Black women, we deal with fibroids, and it's a tough journey. And I know for me, until I discovered that I had them, no one in my family talked about it, right? Like, I didn't know nothing about fibroids. I was like a total and here's how I find out. So when I found out I was pregnant with my oldest is when I found out I had fibroids, right? So me at the doctor's office finding out that I'm pregnant officially, because I kind of already knew I was pregnant. But when I found out officially at the doctor's office, oh, and there's more news, you also have fibroids, right? I'm like, fibroids? What's that? Am I gonna die? Is the baby okay? Like, those are your initial thoughts when you're finding out. And I was 20, I was 29. I want to say I had just turned 29. Let me see, because I had gotten married in March of 2010, and I found out I was pregnant a month later. So I was 28, about to be 29. I was turning 29 that May. But yeah, to find out that you're pregnant, and then to also find out that you have fibroids, it was a lot. It was a lot for me to take in. I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know I didn't know if I was going to be able to have a baby, because I knew nothing about fibroids. All I knew at that point was just that, I was pregnant, finding out that I'm pregnant. I was a few weeks along, and then I found out that I also had fibroids. And then I found out that I had about two huge ones, the size of cantaloupes, is how they're pretty much the size, that how they described to me how big they were. And I had a bunch of other little small ones, right? Nothing they can do about it at that time, because I was pregnant, of course. So, of course, I'm pregnant, going through that situation. My pregnant with my daughter, it was a lot. It was a lot. I was in and out the hospital throughout my pregnancy. I remember starting to have contractions, like I was about to go in full blown labor. At, like, I want to say my first contractions were about at 4 months. I believe I was at 4 months when I started experiencing hardcore contractions, to where I was going to the hospital, okay, so they could stop these contractions. I remember at night being in the couldn't go to sleep at night because I was having contractions. I was experiencing contractions so often, to where I would be, and at this time I was, married, and I didn't want to wake him up, because I felt like I had already put a lot on him, because I was just we every time I'm having contractions, we have to go back and forth to the hospital. And that was literally the cycle of the entire pregnancy for me having my daughter. um but I could remember even being in the sorry guys, I'm outside too. I just kind of wanted to be outside, and just because I'm in the house all day, I'm working from home, and I'm in the house all day, so I just needed to kind of come outside and just be one with the fresh air for a second. um but anyways, getting back to my fibroid journey, I can remember being at home late in the middle, wee hours in the morning, and I would like end up on the floor, not even knowing how I ended up on the floor, because I was in so much pain, and I was experiencing so much that I didn't want to keep bothering him, but he would wake up and find me in the living room on the floor. And it was just that much pain that I was going through. I remember at 6 months, I want to say I was about 5 to 6 months at this time. And I remember I was in the hospital for a few days. I was in my hospital visits throughout that pregnancy. I was in the hospital for at least 7 days. Like, it wasn't no just stay there for one day, stop the contractions, and send her back home. No, it was I was in the hospital for about 7 days. And I can remember at 6 months, it was about 5 to 6 months. Um, I was in the hospital, and the doctor told me to prepare myself for a miscarriage because you're not going to give birth to this child. So I'm sorry, my legs are shaking. It's a little cold out here too. But I remember the doctor telling me that. I remember it so clear that he told me to go ahead and get ready for a miss, like, prepare yourself because you're not giving birth to this child. And it was nothing but God's. It was nothing but God that made it be so for Serenity to be born and alive and well. But every time I would go to the just my experience in it with the fibroid journey, I wasn't eating. Every time I did try to eat, I was throwing up. Like, it was so crazy because I couldn't hold nothing down. And if you knew me at the time, like, I'm already a small girl. Oh, of course, I picked up weight now, like, now in my now present. But then, if you knew me back then, like, I'm already a small chick. Like, come on, I don't weight that much. I'm like 100 and something pounds. So I don't weight that much. Anybody who knows me and you like really grew up with me, you know that Sherry was always a small girl. But if you had known me and seen me while I was pregnant, I was losing weight. I dropped down to be about 90 something pounds. It was crazy because the doctor was like, Sherry, we need you to eat. We need you to try to eat. And I'm telling the doctors, like, I'm trying. You don't understand how bad I want to eat or whatever, but I couldn't because I couldn't hold nothing down. Every time I would try to eat something, I'm throwing it up. That's it. That's what my pregnancy was like. Being in and out the hospital, eating and throwing up, and not on purpose, because I was always trying to pick up weight. And I finally found out I was pregnant. I was like, okay, this is my chance to pick up some weight, right? But that just wasn't my story with my first child when I had Serenity. And I just remember every time I would go to the doctor check-ins or to the pregnancy appointment check-ins, they were telling me that you're losing weight and that, it just started to be, it just started to be kind of defeat, even in the doctor's eyes, though. When I would go and see my doctor, it would be kind of a little bit defeat that I don't know if you're going to have birth to this baby because you're not picking up no weight. The fibroids are getting bigger. So imagine me already 90 something pounds or whatever. And I have these two huge fibroids that were already initially the size of cantaloupes when I first found out I was pregnant. And every time that I would go to the doctor's office, they're telling me the fibroids are getting bigger. So my baby had no room to grow, none at all. And I just I am very grateful. I count my blessings, and I'm very grateful that my daughter is here. She was born prematurely. She was born early. She came about, I was grateful that I stayed pregnant up until 32 weeks. I stayed pregnant until 32 weeks. And at 32 weeks, my water broke. And 36 hours later, listen, I remember my pregnancy like it happened yesterday. 36 hours and 59 minutes later, Serenity was born. She was premature. She was born at 3 pounds, so she did have to stay in the hospital initially for about a good month before she was able to come home. But she's well, and I'm grateful for that. There was because and then also going through my pregnancy, I was on heavy pain medication. I was on so much medication throughout my pregnancy because that was the only way to numb the contractions for me. Like that was the only way to kind of control the contractions. I was like literally, I mean, when you're pregnant, they don't want you to take nothing. And the pain medications that they were giving me was like really dangerous to the pregnancy that I had. So, and I was on Dilaudid. If anybody's in the medical field and if anybody's into prescriptions and medications, Dilaudid is a really strong painkiller there. So, and I would remember just like I was popping them mugs like candy, no lie. And I was low key addicted. I was no lie, I was low key addicted. All because I'm trying to keep the baby in my stomach, knowing that that wasn't helping because it was just a whole bunch of pain medication that I was taking. But I was praying, and it was a lot of praying people around me too at that time. And it was by God's grace. Like it was nothing but the grace of God that my daughter was able to be born and not have any health issues or not have any like birth defects or anything like that, because I was worried. I was like, oh my God, like I haven't, like, what did I do that I'm not taking care of myself, finding out that I have fibroids. But then when you come to research fibroids, when you ask the doctors, they don't know where fibroids come from. Still to this day, fibroids, it's unheard of where fibroids come from and how you get them. And I just wanted to kind of just share my journey because I never really spoke about it unless you kind of really know me and you kind of know some of the experience, or maybe you was around at that time. You kind of know what I've been through with my fibroids. But I say all of that to say is that fibroids is a real thing. Like fibroids, they definitely can be challenging, especially if you are pregnant with them. They could be challenging even if you're not pregnant with them. I remember after I had my baby, my daughter, I think about 3 to 6 months later, I had the myomectomy. That was the only option no, that's not the only option I was given. I was given to have the myomectomy and then also or to have a hysterectomy. I had just had a daughter, didn't know if I wanted more kids because of how my pregnancy went with my first child, right? So I didn't want to totally go ahead and give away, to take out all my girl parts. Like I wasn't ready to do that either. So I said, let me go ahead and do the myomectomy, because I do have those 2 huge ones that are still sitting in here. So they can at least grab those out, and then, we can see what the fibroids do. Of course, they tell you that the fibroids, they can do the surgery, and they tell you that we can't guarantee that they won't come back, because they do. Anybody who's experienced fibroids, that fibroids, they come back. Listen, they just come back. So I've been dealing with fibroids since finding out that I was pregnant with my daughter at 28 years old. So eventually they did start to come back after having that myomectomy. Having the myomectomy, I had my daughter vaginal. I had a natural birth with her because that was another thing. They was unsure that she was going to be a natural birth. They kind of was already preparing for the C-section, but she ended up coming out natural. So, didn't have to do the C-section, but because after having her and then having that myomectomy, any more kids that I was to have after that would automatically be a C-section. Because, when they do the myomectomy, they have to cut you in your stomach here. There's a permanent scar there. My doctor did a really good job, I will say that, to where the scar is kind of really clean and like neat, to where it doesn't like look messy. But when I had my second child, I had the C-section, and they cut that same part open right there to grab my son out. But going through that and kind of going through the after finding out what my options were for to deal with the fibroid, having the myomectomy, deciding to go with that process because I wasn't ready to get rid of my girl parts, and then finding out probably like a year later that okay, fibroids are back, but they're not as big as they were before, right? And then just kind of dealing with that. But at that time, I was still a little good with it. I was like, okay, well, let me just deal with it for now because they're not hurting like they were before. My periods remained to be heavy. My periods were super heavy and my cramping was out of control. So when I got tired of dealing with that, I went back to the doctor again. At this time, I had probably moved up to the state of Washington. I lived in Washington for a few years. So I had probably moved up to the state of Washington about this time. So I'm at a new doctor or whatnot. And then I wanted to kind of see what the options were about removing the fibroids again, right? Went to the doctor, started going to the doctor in the state of Washington, and I was told about the fibroid embolization, right? Never heard of it before. So they kind of started explaining what it was and the procedure and how they go about it. Um, and I started looking more into it, and I was like, oh, okay, this is not like, it's not a surgery. They don't have to cut me. Like, I don't have to worry about that scar being touched again, right? And they kind of just told me how the procedure goes, right? And I was like, okay, I want to do that or whatever. Like, I didn't have to stay in the hospital a day or two after the myomectomy or nothing, none of that, right? It was real quick and simple and easy. And the fibroids were just shot off. Like, they shot, it's like, the way that it was explained to me is that they stick a tube in your girl part. I don't want to be all crazy on here, but they stick a tube in your girl part and they shoot off the fibroids. They're shooting off the blood supply to the fibroids. And mine went really well to where they kind of just shot them all off, like bam. And then when I went and had got my next checkup, my next doctor's appointment after the fibroid embolization, there were no sign of fibroids, right? So I was like really happy for a long period of time or whatever. But that's after having my son. I actually initially got pregnant again while I was in Washington and had my son. I had fibroids with my son, but the fibroids were really easy to deal with that pregnancy. They didn't grow. There was a few fibroids in there, but there was no harm to my pregnancy. So I had an excellent pregnancy with my son. And I know some people think that, and it's different for everybody. Everybody fibroid journey is a different fibroid journey. I've had fibroids and I've experienced 2 pregnancies with fibroids, and both of those pregnancies were totally different. My daughter's pregnancy, I was in and out the hospital throughout the whole entire 7 to 8 months because I had her early. So yeah, probably about 6 to 7 months or whatever. For the whole 32 weeks that I was pregnant, I was in and out the hospital, back and forth, back and forth. When I got pregnant with my son, the fibroids were manageable. They weren't that big. It wasn't as many. And actually, every time that I would go to the doctor, I was still considered a high-risk pregnancy with my son. I was still considered a high-risk pregnancy. I was definitely already told and confirmed that you will be having a C-section because you have had the myomectomy. So, and they didn't want to cause more damage to the uterus or whatever. But my fibroids were shrinking with my son. My fibroids were shrinking, no problems. I gained weight. I gained weight with my son. I was able to eat. I was pigging out with my son when I was pregnant with him. And I picked up weight. Like, I was so happy about that because I had lost so much weight in my first pregnancy. I was happy to be sitting here eating my life away, eating whatever I want. I would be up at 1, 2 o'clock in the morning with a bowl of cereal and just enjoying my pregnancy. So my second pregnancy with my fibroids was pleasant. It was amazing. After I had my son is when I had the fibroid embolization and when I found out about that option. Now I did wonder, why wasn't that option offered to me with when I had the myomectomy? I don't know. They don't tell you about that option. I really don't know. And even now, though, like, you really have to do your research to see what the options are for you. So I say all of that to say is that everybody's fibroid journey is totally different. Everybody's fibroid journey is totally different. You know, like I've said before, I've experienced 2 pregnancies. I've had 2 of my own pregnancies. Both of my pregnancies, I've had fibroids, and both of them were totally different. Totally different. Both totally different. Okay. So everybody's going to have a different journey for your experience. I've been dealing with fibroids for about, my daughter is 10. She'll be 11 this year. So about 11 years I've been dealing with fibroids. And actually, a few months ago, I had like an extra period come, and I was wondering, like, okay, what's going on? Because after having the fibroid embolization, I had the fibroid embolization in the year of 2016. No. I had the fibroid embolization. My son was born in 2014. I had it in 2014 or 2015. It wasn't not too long after that. So it was like probably 2014 or 2015. So from 2014 up until now, about 7 years, about 7 years, I haven't had no problem. I haven't had no sign of fibroids. A few months ago in this year, I had an extra period come. So of course I'm alarmed. Of course, my first thing to do was to, okay, I called my doctor, see what was going on. She scheduled me to come in and do a vaginal ultrasound. And of course, we found out that, some fibroids have come back or whatever. So even with after having the fibroid embolization, now I will say that is the best option because the procedure is not too much on your body. They don't have to cut you. There's cramping after the process. I remember having minimum cramping, and I also remember um, I remember taking a little bit of medication. They did prescribe me something, but I barely had to take it. Like, and the next day after the procedure, I was able to kind of get up and do stuff. I was able to carry on with my normal activities, go to work, clean up around my house. I was able to take care of my kids. After you have your myomectomy, you can't really do none of that. Like, after you have your myomectomy, you come home from the hospital, you have this cut, you're pretty much in the healing process. Now your healing process is different, but you're healing from that cut for a few weeks. Like, you're not just jumping back up and getting back to regular scheduled program as normal, right? But I remember the fibroid embolization, I was able to kind of get up the next day and continue on as if I didn't even have that procedure. So I definitely feel like it is the best option. So if you are someone who is experiencing, you have fibroids and you don't know which way to go, or you never heard about the fibroid embolizations, I urge you, and I urge you to ask your doctor about the fibroid embolization option to see if that's something that they offer, because I just don't feel like that, they're telling us right away. They're not, I feel like the first options is always that myomectomy and then always that hysterectomy type deal. But no, there's another option for fibroids, and we just really got to know that, because they're not going to tell us, because the fibroid embolization, it's less money to have that procedure done. So these hospitals and these, big medical institutions and all of that stuff, you know, it's all money involved. I mean, we know that every business, every company, every big institution, it's all about the finance part of it. But we need to really know what's better for our body, and we need to especially be able to have more kids. And if you want to not have somebody cut you open, like, yeah, we need to know all of our options. Don't just give me one or two of what's best helping your doctor bill or your medical institution. Give me the best options for my body or whatever. And I don't know, I don't know if it was because of, I don't know why it seems like black women are just, I don't know why it seems like we're not giving all of our options. But I do feel like the more that we speak up and talk about our journey and talk about our situations to kind of try to help somebody else so that they can know to ask, is because I don't even remember. I go back to even talking about it in my family before I had fibroids. I feel like when I had it became to be a topic in my family. Like after I found out I had it is when I found out, oh, that other people in my family has experienced this. And but I could never really talk to nobody about it because I never knew who had it. But it started kind of slowly coming out after, because I was very vocal about my, like, I was very vocal in my family counterparts about my experience, and everybody kind of knew what my pregnancy was like because it was a horrible pregnancy when I found out the first time I was pregnant with the fibroids. So my journey was definitely no secret. Like everybody knew. If you knew me, and if you were in my life at that time, you knew what I dealt with fibroids. But it was just weird to me that after I found out I had fibroids and then my experience and my journey started, oh, I found out all of this. Who else has experienced it? But I never knew what to ask for, never knew what fibroids was, never knew nothing about it because nobody in my family said anything for years. So I just think that it's really important that we share our stories. I really think that it's necessary to share what you're going through, share what you're dealing with, because you can be like me, what, about 11 years ago, and had no idea what fibroids was or whatnot. So it's just very important. Like some symptoms to look for with finding out that I had fibroids. Heavy bleeding. My periods were always so heavy for years. For years, I really believe that I had fibroids in my 20s. I really, because I was already 28 when I had Serenity, or when I found out I was pregnant with her. I was 28 and then I had turned 29. I definitely believe that I had had fibroids for a few years before finding out. Definitely believe that because my periods were always heavy. I always had extreme cramping. And here's the other thing that I felt like was like just every year, once I became sexually active, every year I was going in for the annual PAP. The annual PAP. And my doctor, nurse, whomever it was that was doing the procedure, never said nothing to me about fibroids. Now, I don't know if it was because this was in the 90s. Yeah, this was like in the 90s. Well, I graduated from high school in 99. So this was like in 2000s. This was in the 2000s or whatever is when I started having a annual PAP every year. And I don't know if it was medical technology. I don't really know if they couldn't really detect for it. But I'm just wondering why for all of those years when I was going in for an annual PAP, that it was never told to me that you have fibroids. Like, I don't know. Like, I don't know why it was never told that you have all these little tumors that are sitting on your uterus. I don't get that. Because I definitely know that I had fibroids well before 28. Because for years before that, my period was always heavy and I always would have the worst cramps. And I just thought that I just had the worst period ever in life. Never thought to think like I would literally have to go to the bathroom almost every hour to change when I was on my period. That's how heavy my periods were in my 20s. So I just thought it was weird. Like you really just did. Those are things to look for, though. Those are really things that you want to look for. You want to look for if you're bleeding heavy, if your periods are heavier than normal than the norm, you definitely want to go get that check. If you're going to the bathroom every 45 minutes to an hour to change while you're on your period, you definitely want to go get checked out. If your cramps are crazy, out of control, like like having contractions cramps, okay? You want to go get checked because those are what some of the signs for me, and I just ignored them and I just dealt with them because I just thought that I had the worst periods in the world. And then also another thing that you want to look for is that if your period is lasting longer than maybe 5 days. I mean, I guess the norm for a period is about 5 to 6 days, maybe 7, but I remember my periods lasting for like 7 to like 10 days, and I would have these long periods, and I'm like, dang, like, what is going on, man? And I don't mean because it's not a joke; it's really serious. But those are just some of the symptoms that I was experiencing, and I just didn't know to even think to even ask my doctor, hey, do I have to check for fibroids? Because I never heard of fibroids even when I found out I had them. So I definitely just wanted to get on and just share my story, my fibroid journey, of some of the things that I've encountered, of going through with my journey. I definitely think that it's necessary and that it's important that we share it with each other, because we are our voices. Like if we're not speaking up and if we're not sharing our experiences, then we can't help somebody else. So I definitely think that it's necessary to share some of the things that your journey may not be my journey. We all have our different journeys and our different things to tell, but I am adamant and I am convinced that the things that we go through, our trials, our situations, our different circumstances, the things that make us stronger is, those are situations that are put in our life so that we can share it with somebody else, so that they can be helped, or so that they can be encouraged, or so that they can be inspired, or so that they can kind of just grow too, grow as you're growing. So I definitely just am at a place in life to where I feel like it's necessary to share certain things. um and I never really shared my fibroid story. Never really shared it. But I hope that, by me sharing, somebody was able to get something from it. If nothing, at least a little bit of signs to check, or some things to look forward if you are, ever wondering if you're going to have, or if you have fibroids, or if you just never even thought to ask. But now, every time I go to the doctor, and anything now that goes on with my body, um, I'm just like quick to kind of address it now. Because for years, for me, for years, I felt like I was already dealing with fibroids unknowingly, not knowing what I was dealing with. So now, anything that goes on with my body, because I'm getting older, definitely getting older now, and I just am trying to live my best life right now. I'm trying to be as healthy as possible, and I'm just also trying to live as long as possible for my kids. And I just want to be healthy, and I just want to be able to enjoy life. So I definitely think that it's necessary that we just share our stories, take care of our bodies, know our options, and not be afraid to speak up, like for real, for real. All right. So I just wanted to share that. I really hope that it was something that it helped somebody, because it definitely, my journey has really helped me. It really has molded and shaped me to who I am today. I'm not perfect. I go through my life challenges, and I go through my situations just like everybody else. But I definitely think that my fibroid journey has really shaped who I was, because shaped who I am now. Because before going through my fibroid journey, I didn't really know how strong I would. Like, I really listen, okay, listen. I didn't know how strong I was. But going through that really showed me, or really kind of just helped me to see that I could really endure. And it really kind of build my prayer life, because I'm not gonna lie. When I was dealing with my fibroids, it was nothing but prayer that kept Serenity alive in my stomach for those 32 weeks that she was in there. Nothing but prayer. Like, it really turned my prayer life up. Okay, not lying. I am not lying. And I've been in church all my life, but you know how you could be in church and you still kind of doing your thing on the side too, right? That situation really helped me to focus and really center in to who God really was. And I feel like he really showed himself to me in that situation. I listen, it was necessary for me to go through what I went through. It definitely was necessary for me to go through what I went through. That's the first time for me that I saw who God truly was. And I would never doubt him again. So I'm just saying, that's just me. Because listen, when them doctors was telling me that you're not going to give birth, you need to prepare for that, for that miscarriage. God was like, no, I got another whole different plan. I got a whole another different plan. So I'm gonna need you to trust me in this process. And that's exactly what I did. And every time that they would tell me that, I would say, no, I'm good. I would say I don't receive that. Like, I literally had gotten to the point, as much pain and stuff that I was in, and as many times as I cried, and as many times as I just like, why is my pregnancy this tough? Like, why am I going through this? I I I trusted God in the process. I did. I trusted God in the process. So whatever the doctors was saying, my speech was saying the opposite. Like, my speech was saying the opposite. No, that's cool, doc, but I have a different faith here. And that's what it was. Listen. So I definitely I definitely am grateful for everything that I went through, because there were times to where I didn't think I was gonna make it. Listen, there were times to where I'm like, listen, Lord, whew, listen, if you get me through this, listen. But anyways, I hope my story really helped you. Um, if nothing else, trust God in the process. Trust him with everything that you're going through. Know that what you're going through is not by accident. Everything that you're going through, it's necessary for where God is taking you. Everything that you're going through is necessary to build you up and make you stronger, like to be able to deal with certain things that is going to come your way or whatnot. We can't always run and hide and kind of just get stuck and stagnant or whatever. We got to continue to push forward even through our tough stuff, even through difficult times, and that's what keeps me going now, because things, even with me running this business, like, it gets tough. It definitely gets tough, and it definitely gets to be discouraging sometimes, because my business is not building as fast as I would like it to build or whatnot. But it's just something, it's God keeps pushing, God keeps tugging on me and said, I need you to keep going. I need you to keep going, because there's greater coming. Like, the business is going to increase, just like you see it envisioning. It's going to increase. You're going to be right where you want to be. But I need you to go through this. I need you to keep pursuing the business plan. I need you to keep posting. I need you to keep talking about your business. I need you to keep building. I need you to keep building up your website. I need you to keep coming up with new posts and just talking about your business. It's going to get it where you, and I just believe that. Thank you, God. I'm just so grateful because I feel like I kind of just got a revelation in all of that, right? Just right now in myself for me. But anyways, I don't want to, I could talk a lot. You know, I'm a talker and I felt like I shared enough already, but I really do hope that you got something from this and, um, and you got to know a little bit more about who I am, if nothing else. Have an amazing evening. It's about to be 7 o'clock. Let me get off here, go see what my kids are doing. You guys have a wonderful evening.